Relief goods and other forms of assistance have started to pour in for victims of Typhoon Odette. To tell us more, we have with us NDRRMC Spokesperson Mark Timbal, who joins us now over Zoom. Good afternoon, Mark. Mark, how are relief operations going in areas affected by Odette, specifically those areas that are very, very hard to reach because of some fallen infrastructure or a lot of debris in the way?
Hi, Ms. Sean. Good afternoon. There is a massive relief operation ongoing right now to support the public that had been affected by Storm Odette. Currently, ships and sea assets, land assets, and air assets of both the government and the private sector partners are going in and out of the key locations to deliver and transport relief items composed of food packs, water, shelter materials, and other equipment and personnel that will be supporting the operations. We are organizing round-the-clock operations to support the needs of our countrymen.
Right, I'm sure there's a lot of challenges in transporting and getting goods to where they need to go. What is the biggest challenge, would you say, at the moment, or biggest challenges?
So far, we are surmounting those challenges in the logistics aspect of our relief operations, because we have prepositioned and readied in advance the different assets of the government. For example, the sea vessels of the Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard, and the armed forces through the Air Force have committed their air assets, including the C-130, as well as our new Black Hawk choppers for the purpose of the relief operations. It's a challenge that there are some areas that still don't have power and mobile signal. That's why we have limited communication, but coordination continues. The NDRRMC has received notice of the requirements of the communities that had been affected, and we have identified these as food items, water, drinking water, one of our priorities, as well as shelter. And these are the main items that we are transporting using those logistics assets.
Right. So with regard to those areas that are extremely hard to reach, even if you have like air and sea assets, what do you think, or when do you think these relief goods and assistance will reach them? Is there some sort of timeline or a goal that you guys have set?
The president had issued very definite instructions on the immediate provision of food items and other necessary items for our affected communities. That's why the local government is also working with the national government to provide those needs in terms of the delivery of those items. But what we would like to ask the public on behalf of the local government units is that the public should regularly coordinate with their barangay officials so that they would be informed where will be the drop-off centers or the distribution centers of relief items in their community. It appears that some of the local government units personnel are spread very thinly across a very large area of their jurisdictions. So some of them may not be able to do a house-to-house delivery of the relief items. So coordination between the residents and the barangays are needed so that every family would be able to receive these relief items that the national government is providing as augmentation to the supplies of the local government units.
Right. So, of course, you mentioned, just circling back to power and communication, still not 100% restored in hard-hit areas. Mark, did you guys, I'm sure you're coordinating with the service providers. Is there is there some sort of timeline that you have for when these will be fully restored?
What we have received at the NDRRMC level is we have more than 135 cities and municipalities that have experienced interruption in their telecommunication signal. In Mimaropa, Region 7, Region 8, 10, the Caraga, and the Bangsamoro. The telecommunications companies are already on the ground to examine, assess, as well as to repair the damages incurred by their cell towers. And as of this morning's reporting, 107 out of that 135 count of cities and municipalities have already had their telecommunications services restored. To augment the communications between the disaster managers on the ground, the NDRRMC through OCD and the DICT have deployed the government emergency communication services in Siargao, in Cebu, if I'm not mistaken, as well as in Maasin City, so that we can complement the ongoing effort for the restoration of communications. There are other areas as well where the satellite communications have been reactivated, so that continuing communications would be able to facilitate the submission of the reports and updates in the operations work. When it comes to the timeline, we haven't received. I haven't received a copy of the timeline submitted by our counterparts in the telco, but they have committed in the previous meetings with the NDRRMC to work round the clock to have all of these services restored at the soonest possible time. That's the same with our power sector counterparts. The repairmen, the linemen of the NGCP and the local power cooperatives are on the scene to work on the repair and the rehabilitation of those affected power lines and power generation stations.
All right, very, very good to hear, and hope power and communication lines are restored post-haste. Mark, I'm going to have to ask you about casualties. Do we have any firmer numbers on the number of dead and injured and still missing? We're also monitoring the count of the PNP, the LGUs. How do you guys plan to consolidate these different numbers that are coming in? And do you have a firmer picture of the total number?
There's an ongoing coordination meeting between the response agencies involving this matter on the casualties. But here at the NDRRMC level, we were able to have a count of 156 fatalities, still subject for verification. And then we have 37 persons missing and 275 persons injured as of this day's reporting. We also received information that we have 481,196 evacuees that are staying in 2,526 evacuation centers. This ongoing consolidation involves the validation and clarification on the details of the situation of our casualties. Because of the problem in communication in some areas, it's possible that some instances had been reported in multiple times. So we're trying to make sure that all of these numbers are definite and the identities and circumstance of death are identified.
All right, thank you so much for the work and for your time and sharing with us this information. NDRRMC Spokesperson Mark Timbal. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Ma'am Sean.